The console wars is back. Previously in the console wars, the PlayStation 4 showed off its assets in the hardware department, taking down the Xbox One in CPU and GPU performance. The matchup is now 3-1, and in the next round we're going to be taking a look at It's me, Mario! Oh, hello Mario. What can I do you for? Why don't you include Nintendo in the console wars? Well, to tell you the truth, Mario, I feel Nintendo has very little place in the console wars, and in this round, I'll tell you why. Oh no! Welcome back to the console wars. The console wars is finally back from hiatus, and for those who don't follow me on Twitter, the delay was thanks to a little addition to my family. So between my busy day job and first months of fatherhood, it's been a bit tricky to find time to play games, or let alone make an in-depth analysis of several platforms. I feel like I owe it to the viewers to actually base the console wars on experience, and not just pull facts out of a hat. The beginning of my story with Nintendo spans back 2.5 decades, to Christmas of 1989. Little did I know back then that that particular event would define how I spend my spare time for the next 25 years. The NES was the machine that saved the gaming industry from the slump of the early 80s, which was caused mainly by the market being flooded with content more suitable for landfills than living rooms. So what changed exactly? A certain Japanese company came along with characters and stories that people actually cared about, and with gameplay mechanics that were easy to pick up and very difficult to master. After joking around on Nintendo's expense, I think I owe it to them to clear up some annoying misconceptions that I seem to run into quite often. So free your mind of all the Nintendo-related negative hype and listen up. Nintendo has undoubtedly, in many ways, alienated a large slice of its younger audience with the questionable copyrights policies that restrict YouTubers from creating Let's Play videos. Nintendo currently offers a creators program for YouTubers where it takes 30 to 40% ad revenue generated by the videos, and the company can still take 100% of the ad revenue if it's not happy with the content. So I can definitely see why people are up in arms. But consider this, the amount of YouTubers with Let's Play content has grown exponentially over the past couple of years, and more people are spending their time watching gaming related videos and streams than actually playing the games themselves. And this trend has evolved into an entirely new form of media consumption that I think is somewhat in direct competition with people actually paying and playing the games. And I think Nintendo has issue with this as well, and they've made a conscious decision based on old school principles not to consider the video watching audience as potential buyers for their hardware and software. And Nintendo knows exactly that there are thousands upon thousands of YouTubers who are willing to give that 30 to 40% cut to the company just to be able to stream Nintendo games. Obviously in the process, Nintendo has pissed off a lot of people, but the company knows that their core audience is very loyal, and this kind of negative PR can be brushed off with a single shrug. It all comes down to what Nintendo thinks will affect purchase decisions of their hardware and software. This or this. Another very popular statement that I wholeheartedly disagree with is that Nintendo needs to release its content on mobile platforms, iOS and Android. Again, brand devaluation and dilution comes into play. Nintendo sees no benefit in releasing its content in venues that are populated with hundreds of thousands of shovelware games that are worth less than the dollar they cost. For every smash hit mobile game, there's 1,000 greed-fueled free-to-play abominations that even the developers themselves in their heart of hearts are ashamed of. Profit margins of mobile games are highly overstated. The company sees no reason to pay Apple and Google a cut for hosting inferior versions of Mario and Zelda, especially when 7 million people are still willing to pay $40 for games like Animal Crossing on the 3DS. Brand dilution aside, Nintendo designed its games around tight mechanics and controls that require physical buttons, and I really don't see the word compromise in the company's vocabulary. Sure, there's huge potential for a quick cash grab, but in the long run, inferior controls combined with the variable experience caused by horrible fragmentation, especially on Android, would only dilute the appeal of great Nintendo classics. I personally do not want to see this happen. Say what you want about Nintendo, it's one of the very few companies that stays true to its core, and is willing to sacrifice some income to maintain it. Many have been quick to dig Nintendo's grave ever since the flop of the GameCube, but lucky for us, Nintendo is in it for the long haul. And they've played their finances smart enough to last them for decades to come, even if they're making bupkis. And speaking of bupkis, the exterior hardware design of the Wii U doesn't say much. It looks like a pretty minimalistic rounded brick, nothing too offensive and flashy, but definitely not something I'd like to have on display. In terms of technical number crunching prowess, it's based on a triple-core PowerPC CPU codenamed Espresso, coupled with a 550MHz AMD GPU codenamed Latte. You know, sometimes the codenames for chips really speak for themselves. I mean, the Wii U offers about a quarter of the number crunching performance of the Xbox One and less than a fifth of the power of the PS4, so any direct comparisons are completely redundant. The Wii U is closer to the PS3 and Xbox 360 in performance than it is to its generational counterparts. But don't get me wrong, this does not mean the Wii U can't produce beautiful visuals. It definitely can. Some games even run at 1080p 60 frames a second. But what the Wii U will never do is push modern games with ultra high-res textures, complex physics, tessellation and other cutting-edge graphics processing. I mean, forget about it. Thankfully, these kooky characters really don't need much of any of that fancy-pants graphical flair and bedazzle. Although I would not mind some extra anti-aliasing in some cases. Other than that, Mario 3D World, Mario Kart 8, and Bayonetta 2 all look gorgeous for what they are, and aren't any less fun without the high-end graphics. While the Wii U will never achieve the levels of photorealism as a competition, smart use of colors and simple textures combined with polished shader effects can provide gorgeous fully fleshed out worlds that are quite sufficient for the likes of the Mushroom Kingdom and Hyrule. But for the many worlds that are not out of Nintendo's own sketchbook, well, that's another story. Thanks to the similar hardware architecture between the PS4 and Xbox One, multi-platform development is pretty much a breeze. But this puts the PowerPC-based Wii U in an awkward position, where porting games requires some extra effort. On top of that, ports require significantly downgraded graphics, plus some extra development time thanks to that Wii U Gamepad. Despite some optimistic statements from Nintendo before launch, aspirations of big third-party titles such as Call of Duty, Arkham Knight, Metal Gear Phantom Pain, or any other multi-platform games for that matter, can be buried and forgotten. Nintendo has done very little to keep the third parties happy, and one by one Ubisoft, EA, and Activision have quietly backed away from actively supporting the Wii U. Ubisoft ended up taking the hardest hit, with decent launch games that tanked thanks to the horrifically bad sales numbers of the Wii U. Despite third parties jumping ship, for Nintendo this isn't as big of a loss as what most would think. The lion's share of Nintendo platform hits and cash cows have always been Nintendo first-party titles, with of course a few exceptions to make the rule. But getting back to the console itself, the Wii U Gamepad is an essential part of the Wii U hardware. The tablet/gamepad hybrid has been somewhat of a hard sell to hardcore gamers, and it definitely took me some convincing that it can offer anything beyond sheer gimmickry. The gamepad is also a bit tricky to explain to casual gamers who already own an iPad or Android tablet, and an old Wii for that matter. The naming scheme didn't help the situation either. I mean, Wii U is a dumb name. It ended up misleading even the mainstream media to think that the gamepad was an accessory for the original Wii. I mean, even the Super Wii would have been a better name in this regard. In terms of ergonomics, the Wii U Gamepad is fine. The matte textured buttons and triggers are sturdy, old school Nintendo quality, and the D-pad is actually sublime for games that require speed and intricate precision, like Shovel Knight. Perfect example. Simple and pure gameplay mechanics, only possible with physical controls. So smartphones and tablets, you can still go ahead and suck it. Otherwise, the Wii U Gamepad is quite comfortable. The rounded ridges in the back help it feel more like a controller and less like a tablet. While it kind of reminds you of a beefed up 3DS, the ergonomics are clearly more thought out and comfortable. Compared to what the competition offers, the analog sticks and triggers are quite satisfactory. They offer quite a bit less range of motion, but overall the Wii U Gamepad holds its own surprisingly well against the Xbox One and PS4 controllers. It does, however, weigh a half a kilo or pound, which means that it's not as comfortable to handle for extensive gaming sessions. Nor is the battery life equipped to do so. The 6.2-inch screen does a good job of draining the battery within 3 to 5 hours, so keep the cord handy. In terms of touchscreen use, even after 2 years it still has some ways to go. Most of the gameplay mechanics tied in with the use of the screen are fun, nothing mind-blowing, and nothing really that couldn't be accomplished with the physical buttons. I guess the main problem is that majority of games force the use of the gamepad but take very little use of its features, which just makes it an expensive, heavy controller. After over a year of use, I still find myself neglecting to utilize the second screen. No matter how much I make an effort of it, it doesn't come natural to look down to check the map on Mario Kart, or switch over to use touchscreen functions mid-game. It more often than not breaks the immersion than offers anything that can expand upon the gaming experience. Nintendo took a risk with the Wiimote, and that risk definitely paid off. The company took another risk with the Wii U Gamepad, and that didn't exactly pan out. But as they say, if you don't risk it, you ain't gonna get the biscuit. That being said, the Wii U Gamepad does have a built-in feature that the competition can't offer, at least out of the box. Streaming to the gamepad, or remote play, works flawlessly. The latency is superb with next to no delay, and the wireless reach is about 30 feet or 10 meters, a bit less than with the Vita and the PS4, but sufficient for a moderately sized home. Surprisingly, the Wii U offers a buttery smooth frame rate that trumps that of the PS4 and Vita combo, and it effortlessly handles even the fastest pace of action games like Bayonetta 2 with, I think, surprisingly little compromise. The 6.2-inch screen is adequately sharp, but the contrast and viewing angles leave some room for improvement. It's definitely no OLED screen, which is understandable for the price tag. The Wii U Gamepad is also equipped with near-field communication, and the purpose is quite simple. If you're still in doubt as to the appeal of the Nintendo brand and its family of characters, the number of amiibos sold in the first 2 months may convince you otherwise. Sometimes the sum is larger than all the technical parts, and in the Wii U's case, that is absolutely true. From a technical perspective, the Wii U has more in common with the shoe than it does with its console brethren. The deluxe model only has 32 gigs of storage space, which of course can be expanded with the external hard drive. But it's clear that it's not intended for digital downloads, and you'll end up playing most of your games off game DVDs. And this means the DVD drive will be running constantly, making the Wii U the noisiest of the bunch. The Wii U is not cutting-edge technology, and the faster you get over this fact, the faster you will discover what Nintendo is all about. I can give you a hint. And another. And perhaps another. If there's one thing that you can be sure about, is that you will not see unfinished games of the likes of Assassin's Creed Unity and Battlefield 4 on the Wii U. Nintendo is old school in this sense as well. It releases games that are completed and they shine with polish. That is something that cannot be said about many games these days, and even the mightier of gaming giants have succumbed to this atrocious trend. For better and for worse, Nintendo is conservative. You may not agree with the company's policies, but at least they are pretty consistent. That can't be said for everyone. I'd probably not invest in the company's stock, as some of Nintendo's decisions really don't invoke investor confidence. I mean, what the fuck? But the games. The games continue to be truly just that good. Superb game design, with tight gameplay mechanics, and with a level of polish that should be the industry standard. Nintendo has exclusive games that invoke a sense of joy and sheer fun that at this stage of the game the competition simply cannot touch. But unfortunately, while we're still in the hardware rounds, the Wii U simply cannot compete, so no points are awarded in this round. However, what Nintendo managed to achieve is my newly discovered respect for what the Nintendo brand encompasses. Follow me on Twitter and stay tuned for the next installment of the Console Wars.